thanks for joining, folks. So it's pretty late in IST and it must be pretty early in ES. So yeah, thanks for joining. This is our first ever space that is hosted by Aviel. So just a quick introduction about me. I am a developer evangelist by Aviel. My name is Utkarsh. You can see my profile down there somewhere. Zeus, Twitter glitch. My bad, I was supposed to host it. But then yeah, so now coming to the part where what exactly we are doing at Aviel. Basically, we are on a mission to create a scalable monetization avenue, you can say, for projects. And at its core, we want to do everything while preserving its open source character. And so we believe in empowering strong, incentivized communities around projects. Basically, we are trying to build communities around open source. So if you want to summarize it at its core, we are basically helping open source projects scale and we help them make sustainable. So now we can get to speaker introductions.
Sure, let me go first. Hey folks, my name is Karthik Rawat. I'm a founder of OpenCo community, which is previously known as Developer Student Community or Devs2com if you know. And right now I'm in a community dev intern at Turing and trying to work on evangelizing community stuff more on that end. And yeah, that's pretty much all about me. Yeah.
So, hi, I'm Vaishnavi Dwivedi, and I'm the founder at Mishi Spotlight, which is a community experience that I've been building. And I'm also a developer advocate at Scalar Academy. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, if you wanna like find out more, you can check out my profile or something. Thank you so much for joining, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Aditya. I'm currently a DevRel engineer here at Apprite, which is an open source backend as a service solution. I've been active around communities and hackathons for the last couple of years, and I co-organized one of the largest hackathons, arguably if not if not arguably the largest in India. That was student led. That was Hackon Hackathon. So really happy to be here with all of you.
Hey everyone, I'm Salil Naik. I'm pursuing my computer engineering currently in my final year. And for the past 6 months, I'm interning at Polygon as a front-end engineer. And I also serve as a director at GuzzScript Foundation. So I kind of look after their open source programs. Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. So those were the introductions. So I guess everyone is clear. Basically, everyone is a part of community, so everybody knows everyone already here. But then we just had to keep it a little formal. But then yeah. So I'll be just talking through the talk flow, guys. Right? I'll be talking through the talk flow for the audience right now. So first of all, we had our introduction. Now we have speakers give short intro. Now we have then we'll be having speaker specific questions. These questions will be asked specifically to our speakers and this will be based on their journey, right? So these have to be specific. Then we'll have general questions. This will be open to all speakers. We can have the audience chip in as well. Then we'll have questions from other audience. Whatever you want to ask them about communities, open source, building, scaling, anything, right? You can request, I'll accept it. You can come on the stage, you can speak, and you can ask them. And then, yep, then we'll be we'll be having closing lines from our speakers, whatever they want to talk about. And yeah, so we'll be starting with speaker specific questions. So I'll be starting with Aditya, right? So yeah, so Aditya also mentioned over here that he has been a core organizer and at Hackon. And if the audience doesn't know, it was one of the biggest hackathons in India in 2021. And I just wanted to know from Aditya, like, how is the whole process like, especially making sure that you scale it and do it better than the last time, right? Walk me through the whole process, right? Because Hackon, I guess this was the third edition of Hackon that you had?
Second, yeah.
Second edition, yeah. So just walk me through the whole process.
So, I mean, when we came about this initiative, I kind of got into the team last year. And from last year's team, three of us kind of continued it this year. So I think the first thing for us was to figure out why were we really continuing this, what problems we wanted to focus towards. Since the start, we started in a virtual scenario. It had been about kind of creating conversations around these current problems here in the scenario we're in. So like last year, I'd been focused around remote lifestyle, for example, for us, because we just transitioned into a remote work mode. This year, we were trying to talk about inclusion and mental health and similar topics. So that was the first step for us to really figure out why did we want to even do this again. Second step, any initiative like this is never built alone. So we kind of went out to figure out what the best team was for us. And that was the next step for us, honestly. I think, with any major initiative, at least community focused, it can never be a solo show. That's just impossible. So,
Definitely. Yeah.
we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. Fortunately for us, our team, we had strengths that complemented each other. So it was really just a great team that we had. After that, of course, once you figure out why you're doing, what you want to do and who best to work with you on this initiative, at that point, you stand up the basic necessities like a platform, a website, all of that. After which, our initiative took two directions simultaneously. The first one being partnerships, and the second one being growth. So with partnerships, that's a domain I heavily work on, and we kind of tried to, pitch on the big horse since the beginning. That's how we started off. I mean, that's the sponsorship and game for you. For us,
Yeah.
fortunately, since we were our second edition, we had one thing we'd maintained from the first edition was the statistics of our initiative. Because at the end of the day, when you're building partnerships with organizations, companies particularly, apart from the social impact of an initiative, there is a certain expectation of a return from what I've seen, right? Like at the end of the day, every organization, every partner will have their own agenda with any
Definitely.
initiative.
Yeah. Yeah.
For us, our statistics helped navigate that. Secondly, I think with the platform, the biggest partnership we were able to bring was we had support from HackerUp. And that really worked out well for us. It's something we thought of because it has been around for the longest time to support events like these in India. And one of my co-organizers, Rishabh, had actually been a PM intern there at that point of time. So that partnership is something we focused on, and simultaneously leveraging our platform. We ran our past statistics. We went ahead for partnerships. Every partnership that you make becomes a validation for your initiative, and we leverage those when we were talking about our growth, right? Similarly, we had not left our past audience. We had been leveraging, we had maintained that community, although I wouldn't say it was the most active in the world, but we maintained that. We did not close that off. We did not discard that by any means. It was still a space where people could interact, chill, and that became an important aspect for us because typically with hackathons before this, what you would have is that before the hackathon starts for a week, 2 weeks, you have regular activities. We decided
Yeah.
we didn't want to do that. We wanted to ensure that this is a community where people actually want to be around, at least till we could manage this initiative. So we did consecutive activities for 9 or 10 weeks. Every single week we had a community catch up where we'd meet with people. We talk about a random agenda, which is kind of also where random community convos came from in a way, because the format of going in agenda-less for the people, for the hackers, came from there. We tried that there. We'd go on in there, and we'd solely run it by the community for the community. That is what we were thinking of at that point, because we wanted it to be a space that everyone feels a part of as well as an owner of. So we kind of try to focus on those sort of tenets for the community at least. And it worked out well for us because every single individual who participated, the ones who enjoyed out of them, automatically advocated for this initiative without us having to expect that of them. And that's a cycle we maintained. Once we saw that this is something that people were appreciating, worked out for us. It was then all about sustaining these activities, and that's what we focused on. Because launching something does not make sense unless you have the the ability to actually endure and sustain through time. And that's really what became our priority. Because we were able to sustain these activities and our numbers and statistics kept growing, we kept generating interest in partners. So those both, had that sort of a relationship where if one worked out well, the other would work out well, and vice versa. The more partnerships we got, the more audience we got. The more audience we got, the better partnerships we got. And that kind of worked really, really well for us. Another thing we thought of was that with a typical hackathon, a lot of times what you would see is, if you've got a prize pool, let's say it's 1 lakh, what people do is we'll do a 50, 30, 20 breakup, first, second, third prizes, right? To make big grand prizes, to make them shiny. In our experience, what we realized was is that also scares off the beginners away because people feel that it's too big for them to even try it. So we changed our structure at that point substantially, where apart from the top three, we kept 7 other prizes. So we essentially had a top 10 that we maintained. And within the first 3, of course, that was one thing, but the other 7 were supposed to be equivalents, a best of Hackon. And that's kind of what we pushed on. So, we kept trying to make sure it's a space where everyone feels that they have an opportunity to stand their ground, if nothing else. And sustaining this practice, continuing forward, things just worked out well for us. There was an aspect of fortune on that front as well, because we were trying some stuff in this hackathon that we hadn't done in the past. So decreasing those prices could have just failed us as well, right? But it was a risk we took. Things worked out.
It did work
And
out, yeah.
it went off pretty well. So I actually wrote an article about this and we just published it. Yes, I think yesterday. Yeah, I guess if that's okay, I'll share that in the space.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll just do that. Thanks.
Yep. Yep. I also see a lot of requests. Folks, we will be having general questions and I'll be opening the space then. But until then, let's finish off with the speaker questions. Then we'll be getting back to the general questions and I'll be opening the space. You can come on the space. You can talk about your experiences. Definitely. So Aditya, thanks for answering that. That was amazing. Now we'll come to Vaishnavi, right? Like, where do I even start? Like Michi Spotlight, I think I haven't been following the latest updates, but then I guess you just launched an open source version of it where you're actually looking for contributors and everything. And like I've seen your work extensively, right? Like even from knowing you personally, I've known your journey in open source community, started from attending and organizing hackathons at your university, and then becoming a developer advocate and everything. Like, so how did all of that journey shape your advocacy for open source and communities? And then just by being a contributor or organization, can you just talk about the value that it brings or the impact that it made to your portfolio in general?
Right, all right. So yeah, thank you so much, Utkarsh, for saying all of those kind things. So basically, like for Michi Spotlight, yes, we have sort of an open source angle in mind right now. Essentially, we started the community in the beginning to ensure that the beginners in the tech ecosystem are able to explore as much as possible. They're aware of the options that are available because I mean throughout our lives, our path is usually pretty set, or we just try to imitate other people who have reached certain heights. So I just wanted to create something where students are aware of the opportunities, the resources, and the kind of things that are required for them to sort of like grow on their own and figure out their path based on their own life experiences, their own interests, and maybe do something that is quite innovative, never seen before. So that was the idea behind Michi Spotlight. And with the open source community right now that we're building, we have onboarded around 30 volunteers who are like really good people, participated in different open source programs as well. So we want to like bring their ideas to life, essentially. That is sort of the plan right now. And when it comes to like my own experience, building and starting Michi Spotlight and fostering, an open source community, I would say that I mean I think I may have like stated the story like many times, but when I was before third year, I had absolutely no idea that there existed an external community or like a whole new world of people who are like, you know, in the tech ecosystem who are aware of so many different kinds of things. I didn't even know what a hackathon is. By the time I reached, I think, second year, at the end of the second year, I knew what like these things are as concepts, but I did not know what exactly they are essentially because I was like more of an introvert and not necessarily, but like I was just not very exposed to the world outside. And then, but you know, inside our college itself, like I tried. To build a very small community where we used to sit together and learn GitHub. We knew what open source is because of programs like GSOC and MLH. So we knew what these programs are, and then we eventually like we knew about what open source was. And you know the first tool that you learn for contributing to open source is Git or GitHub. So we started learning that. I think that we were like a group of 40 folks. Only like 5 or 6 of them were very active, and we used to like meet up together in person. We used to learn about these things. None of us were experts or anything, but we just like learned via Googling and practicing and stuff. So that's how essentially we started out, and through so many different opportunities that I got as an individual along the way, like you know, Google Developer Student Clubs happened for me in third year, which sort of you know exposed me to this external community that we know today. And that's how I got to know about different folks that are like different folks like Aditya, Kartike. So many different people are here on this space as well who have done amazing work in the communities. Even you, Utkarsh. So yeah, I mean, I just feel that you know I learned a lot from different people who were already there in this space, and I got inspired by the work that they did. And then eventually, when this idea for Michi Spotlight, which actually came to me during a hackathon, like I was participating in this hackathon called In-Out by DevFolio, and I had actually built a version one of Michi. It was basically like a very innovative sort of roadmap hub. Like if you are like you know if you're looking for a certain domain, it will provide you with a customizable roadmap. It wasn't the best project in terms of execution, but still working on it, sort of. But then that idea essentially converted into this community platform thingy, and then you know, then sort of all started. And as Aditya mentioned, like so many different things about partnerships and collaboration, I think it's a very big part of communities. And we recently started like a partnership with Binance for a blockchain and cryptocurrency program, and it has been going pretty cool. Like it's been going very great. A lot of people are giving great feedback, and we're looking to sort of scale it up a little as well. So yeah, I mean, that's how it has been at least till now. So yeah, thanks for listening, I guess.
It's been great, right? Like all of it starts with a single idea. Like you just said, ki, it's idea thingy, community thingy. But then I think it starts from an idea. Then you keep working and iterating over that. I mean, yeah. And even the Binance thing, that was pretty cool. Like I saw that and I was like, okay, I was pretty amazed, right? Because folks usually don't just get that, right? Cool. So now we'll come to Karthike. Like Karthike, what can I just say? Like OpenCo, it was one of the things that was done, and it was a shocker for all of us, right? Because you had no community backing, no backing at all from basically. We've even had a conversation on this where
Yeah.
no MSFT, no GitHub and everything. Now that you are, but then this is all before that. Like, what was one of the biggest challenges in scaling OpenCo? It was a very new initiative, right? And I've firsthand experienced and witnessed the impact it has made on thousands of lives of students, right, who just wanted to get started with open source. So just tell me about that whole journey.
Yeah. Thanks first of all, Utkarsh, for like inviting me for about this space with other awesome speakers and those who are doing great work in community. I'm just like a 1% of them what they are doing. So talking about myself specifically, I'm representing. I'm not like a distributor, like distinguishing like with many people. Like we are promoting inclusiveness, but I'm representing three-tier cities from three-tier college students. I am from where there is no chance of like starting a community culture because where I belong is like Chhattisgarh, and Chhattisgarh there is no community culture here. There is nothing, and even I didn't thought of I can build this kind of community in my region and impacting not only my region students or professionals but like globally and also starting is like that my it's I think so it's second year I hope so and we just entered and first year students came into so I and one of like others co-founder like we can't think of we never like recently we met with my co-founder. I never met at all with any of co-founder and we just connect with on the you can say virtually as like hackathons came into play and we just reach out to each other because we are from same college like let's do a like a hackathon kind of a random thing and we didn't think of we can make it like a community and kind of thing. So we started it and we thought of like we didn't get an proper guidance and you can say as a student as a first year like we lack of like if we knew this in our first year so we can do amazing stuff around throughout the community or anything because on that moment I didn't know what his community is. Again, Aditya is the backbone of the whole thing. Like I didn't know anything about community and this is the person like Aditya who is standing beside me on that very moment. Like he teaches me no like even though I did some wrong thing over when I starting of community, so Aditya is the one who like correct me, no, this is not the way you can start with community or this is the not correct way to get started with it. So on that very moment I started it. It just like a random thing. Maybe it's a luck for me. I am always say it's like a luck for me because in my region there is no opportunity in terms of everything. It can be job, it can be community, anything. So it's just kind of for me a luck, maybe I can say on that. But again, the whole you can say whole things are goes to my team. Uh, my team is very supportive. I can damn sure like even I if I'm comparing with other communities to team, I can damn sure and like the team that I got is one of the best in India. I can surely damn on point I can say because the support that they gave to me, it's not only I'm a founder so that I'm working on. No, my all the team are the founder of that community. They are doing so much effort. Even if I am just stuck with some of the work, they are the ones who are taking the charge and doing that stuff. So that makes my community different from other. It's not like that we are bringing or we are focusing on open source communities inclusiveness is why because we know the value of it. Many people didn't know the value of it because they didn't have a like a have a urge about because we as a student from three-tier cities or you can three-tier colleges know that what is the value of community, what is the value of open source. From that we got opportunities. So many students didn't know and we know the value of it. As simple as it is, if you get into talking about some Indian stuff is like that. When you get into IIT, they didn't need the value of what is the they getting a research lab. Suppose I'm taking an example. So we from those who didn't get that resources, we know the value of it. So same is like that. We know the value of open source. From there, we connect. I connected with so much thing. Like my community is very like a. It's just like a local community. We can't think of we can we hit globally also. We can't think of it. We're just here to help other people or other students in my region so that we can get started with some small thing. It's not like a big thing that we are think of. And MLS local hack day came. I connected with so much awesome. Like I connected with Khushi from Aditya again. Aditya is again the backbone of out of it. Aditya is the one who keep me connected with other people. You can say, okay? So it's like that only. And I connected with Addy Jod. Even I didn't think of like the GitHub star of the year. Know me on that and like yeah, he follows me back on Twitter and I like goosebump on that and like this is a great person doing so much great work in open source and now he's following me. And from that point I think of like we can maybe I can do more for the community. From there I connected with Vaishnavi, Aditya, Siddharth, many others. Like it's like it's a, like an infinite number of people I know, and they are doing so much awesome work. From that, I got motivated. Like these person are doing, so I can do a 1 to 2% for my kind of a region also. So on that moment, Addy I started watching Eddie's old videos about the open source and what actually meant open source. And again, Kunal Kushwaha is one of the, you can say, one of my mentor on open source. Like why open source is not only about coding or contributing to coding stuff. It's about when we're talking about documentation that no one values till date on that end, but it's now valuable why documentation is needed. And when we start scratching off, we found out it's not only our region, it's like many students or many professionals are very afraid of open source, like or like like a time waster for some of the people also. So we just found out on that basis and we just kick started it, and it just, I just saying it just thing random, it's not like that. It's again, if it's luck, then I'm just dividing this part into two things. If it is a luck, it's great, but if it's not a luck, then it's my team. I have done only 1% to my community. Again, 99% is done by my team, my whole team. I can give shout out to many people, like my team is my power. They are a source of my energy to build out this community. And when we are finding out and giving talk on many conferences, I thought of like why inclusiveness is necessary. So on that moment I thought of open source is great, but when came into inclusiveness, like why people are talking about so much inclusiveness, okay. So came into play, I just reading a psychology book and just find out for every when we're talking about every gender, there is a concept of psychology is like that. You get different ideologies of every gender's you can say thought process, you can say. So that's what I came into play, and you can say my whole community just built out on that end. Yeah.
Cool. Those were really like different insights, but then yeah, it summed up pretty well. Like I know how most of the people started. They mostly started when we saw a lot of folks like Aditya be doing the work that was not being done before. Especially, I've seen the shift in the Indian student communities. Right, it has been a great shift, to be very honest. But then let's jump to Salil now. Like uh, a lot of people don't know he has been a program manager and one of the co-organizers of GirlScript in 2021. And just to give you the numbers, it has 60 plus open source projects, 3,000 plus participants, 1,000 active contributors. That made at least a single PR, right? Which was
Yes.
acceptable. And now, from what I understand, it is like from what I understand is when this is being done in a demographic, right? Like a different demographic like India, uh, it's quite harder than when you try to pull something off of that scale in countries like US, where the culture is already built right from high schools, right? And in India, we see that these cultures are inbuilt, especially when you go to second or third year now. For most of us, it was like third year, right? Or maybe second year. But then now is that when we have seen the cultural shift. So I would just like to ask Salil about the whole process and how was it to actually just organize GirlScript in general, and how was the whole process like in 2021?
Yeah, thanks, Utkarsh. I myself started with my open source journey as a participant at GitHub Summer of Code. So that was like my very first experience in contributing to open source. After that, I became the project lead, where I had one of my projects there. Then the program manager, where even you were one of the participants, right? So I can't really answer how the GitHub open source community started because I myself didn't know about open source when it started. But I'll definitely share my learnings of taking charge of the community midway and then trying to scale it. So for
Definitely.
those who don't know, yeah, for those who don't know, Utkarsh, who is the host, was a part of the program when I took charge of the program, and I took charge of the event in the midst of controversy. So when I joined, I realized that most of the decisions they are taken in the favor of the organizing committee. For example, let's say onboarding members on Discord. It's an easy task, right? All we need to do is send them the invites. And that is exactly what was being done. No one was moderating it. No one was thinking of the consequences of having more than 6,000 participants on Discord. So everyone was allowed to tag everyone, and it was just nuisance. So the first thing I obviously had to do was change the way it functions. You know, I took the decisions which would help the community. It's fine if a bunch of organizers have to work their ass off, but whatever we do should be beneficial to the users, to the members. And as you all know, GitHub is a big trend, and so are our open source programs. So some of the best students, the best student developers that I know were a part of it. And they are way better coders than I am. They are They have contributed more to open source than I ever have, and they are definitely much smarter than I am. So I started taking their advice. I didn't just want a few of us to decide what is good for the community and what is not. I wanted to decentralize it, like totally decentralize it, involve everyone in the decision making, and then grow the community. And that is the power of community, I would say. Everyone should have the right to speak up, to contribute, to improve, to criticize, right? And that is how I believe I got GulfScript Summer of Code on track. Again, I'm not sure whether I did it successfully. Only the members can judge my work. And now my focus is to take it on an autonomous mode. I want the community to run without me being involved there. We have an amazing team, and I want them to have the proper guide, a detailed guide, covering the do's and don'ts of the program, mentioning the things that hurt the community, mentioning the things that help the community, etc. And I want them to take it forward. And hopefully, in a year or so, I may be able to successfully pull it off. You never know. And again, I'm not a community person. I'm a hardcore developer. I cannot do the community work the way Vaishnavi, Karthike, or Aditya does. I mean, they are just amazing at what they do. But this year, what I've noticed is that, and I do not want to take credit for any of this, but this year I saw a lot of students from my state. I come from Goa, for those who don't know. They took benefit of all these programs. And that is exactly what I want. Goa is way behind than the rest of the nation when it comes to tech, when it comes to engineering, open source, etc. And this is just a small contribution or small effort from me to encourage these kids here. So yeah, basically that is what I do at GulfScript Summer of Code. Again, GulfScript Summer of Code is not the only event that I handle. We have a bunch of open source events and a few are coming up. So I'm kind of a guide there.
Cool. Amazing. Okay. So yeah, like he mentioned, I was a participant at GoalScript too, but then I'll tell you secret, right? Because there's a lot of participation that I had been doing, especially like if you take 9 months to 6 months back, I'd also been part of Aditya's hackathon. But then my sole aim wasn't about participation; it was about understanding the way each and every role works. Because by the time I had already been into developer relations, but then I had not updated my profile, and a lot of people don't know that. And so there was a lot of research work going on at the back, and I used to basically even it's pretty funny, but then I used to pose as participants, right, to actually learn about how the community is working, because for the next role that I was going to apply for, it needed a lot of perspective in terms of community and also developer relations and how we can scale things. And I was writing content which was not ever written, right? So I actually needed a lot of thought process and a lot of talking to be done, front end, back end. So yeah, so those are just one of the things. Okay, cool. And Salil, yeah, amazing work. A lot of people don't know, I used to stay in Goa too till 2018. I moved to Bangalore then. My family still stays in Goa though. And yeah, Goa is definitely, in terms of tech space, it actually has been pretty bad. But then, yeah, I've seen the work of Salil and his other communities that he's been part of actually scale up the things for the participants at Goa, and it's actually pretty great. Now, okay, so now coming to the general question. Once the general question has been asked, I'll be opening the space so everyone who wants to chip in, they can come in, they can talk to the speakers, ask questions, general space, right? Okay, cool. So, okay, so the general question, or maybe the hot topic for today is like a lot of speakers on there, especially a lot of folks who are on the platform right now, they have been a part of multiple communities, right? Now, let's talk about failures in communities, right? Now, uh, especially the communities around text. Like, what have you seen that can easily break a community? And this can be literally anything that you've noticed, like even the smallest of the things, or maybe something that was on a very large scale that has become setback for any community. Like, just chip in and share your ideas and anything that you have in your mind.
It starts from a personal level, of course. Because
Definitely.
I think probably before we talk about it from a work perspective, it's something that we need to look back for our own selves. Because I think until we learn to accept our own stuff, we're not going to accept such things that, we mess up at that sort of scale. Like, I remember back at the start of last year, things were still in person, but we had quite a lot of, things just got quite messy around communities around me. just highly political, lot of fights. And I think I had some role in there, although fortunately for us, at least we were on an ethical standpoint. It's just that sometimes, when you come out of that, you kind of feel like you're the thing. And I think it's only after that happened and I took that to a few other things before Progate came for me that I realized it's just that these scenarios aren't great for a lot of us. Fights in the community, they're pretty bad. Uh, I think those were times when a lot of us, at least when we go through communities, before we start talking about inclusion, when we start before we start talking about things, looking at things from others' perspectives, we often start thinking about how we're going to grow through situations, how we're going to make our place. I do want to say one thing about communities. It's not just about pushing everyone aside to make your place. It's to create a place where everyone can stand with your with with their heads held high. And I think probably at that point, a lot of us weren't thinking about that. This was actually at a time before a lot of major milestones in communities happened for me because like this was after I joined the Microsoft Student Partner Program, but this was before some of my bigger initiatives before I joined the NG India team last year, before I joined Progate, before MLH happened. This was before all of that. So it's just that it wasn't at as big a scale, but it's something that I realized then. And the fact is that these are issues that are happening every single day in communities around us. It's something we see on a regular basis. Because I'm sure every single person here has seen someone trying to push someone else around to make their place in communities. And I think, when we're talking about growing, that's kind of the first thing we have to stop doing. Because the fact is there is space for everyone. It's only about whether you're willing to accept that, whether willing to let someone stand with you rather. And you know that's probably one thing that I had to learn, at least when it came to growing and working in communities at the very beginning.
Definitely, yeah. Pretty good insight. So, like those little political issues between the internal teams, they always mess up the whole picture, right? Because when you're building communities in the first place for everyone to get uplifted in the first place, so it doesn't even make sense. So, yeah. Other speakers, do you have anything in your mind? Vanshika's here too. So, just to give a quick summary, the general question was about the failures of communities around tech and open source that you've been a part of, or maybe you've something that you've noticed as a participant or anything, or maybe just as an audience. So we are talking about those. If you want to chip in, you want to say anything about it, we have the audience open. We have the space open, the audience. You can, everyone in the space, you can actually request to come on the stage. You want to ask anything, you want to tell, you want to talk, you feel free to do so.
Yeah. So, I've noticed that when the organizers or a bunch of people to try to put a lot of restrictions, the chances of hurting or breaking the community increases. This is something that has affected my community as well. So when I took the charge of the community, the first thing that I did was to remove all the unnecessary restrictions on Discord or otherwise. In fact, the only rule that I set was be respectful towards the community members. And earlier, the members they weren't allowed to speak against the organizers. I know, it sounds crazy. And as a result, people took it to social media and started criticizing us there. So, I told them, henceforth, I'll be taking the decisions. So, criticize me on Discord or in the DMs. Because if you criticize us on social media, I may never know the downsides of the community, right? And as a result, I will never be able to improve it. So, you see, the power of community rests within the community members. So, never put restrictions on them, I would say. Instead, set them free. And if you set restrictions on them, that would be the biggest setback for any community, right? Not just open source community. And that can literally break your community into pieces, I would say. The second thing was rightly pointed by Aditya. You cannot pull other communities down to rise up. We all are doing the work. Yeah, some do it better than the rest, and that is fine. Yeah, so these were my 2 cents.
So I just like to add on to these points that like have already been spoken about, but also like add on a little bit of my own experience, having experienced these things. So when I was in college, like I said before, like I was not a part of external communities before, and in my college we had something called like committees. Obviously almost every engineering college has these committees, and they have this kind of monarchy complex that there are like people at the top and then everybody is like below them basically. And being a part of those communities for the longest time sort of like made that sort of feeling in my head. I used to think that I have to do things on my own. I have to do things by myself, only then it'll be perfect. Or I can't let other people like indulge into this. When I started Google Developer Student Clubs in my college, the only problem that I faced, the biggest problem, that I was not able to delegate tasks to community members or volunteers who wanted to participate in the community. And I was like, the only reason for that is because I had a lot of experience exploring all the different domains, right from digital marketing, social media, like designing the posters, writing the content, every single thing I used to do on my own. And I had absolutely like, because since the beginning I used to do everything on my own, and I actually loved doing all of those things because I was like, it was very I don't know, like I just enjoyed doing it. So that sort of hindered the growth of the community members who were a part of the community, who were there to learn from me and basically like learn through the experience. And then I think in a few short months I realized this problem, and I tried delegating stuff. Things were not very perfect. Things Posters were like not as good as I had imagined them to be, or the content had a lot of mistakes in them. But then I was like, okay, I need to teach these people. I can't do everything on my own. So I mean that perfectionist complex should also like not be a part in your head, because at least as a community leader you need to learn how to delegate tasks, because at the end of the day if you try to do everything on your own, then your community will come to a point when everything stops, when you have burnt out, or when you can't do things on your own anymore, or at a point then when you start doing everything on your own, people or volunteers, they just like turn away, and they stop caring about the community itself. They don't think that they have done work towards building this community. So I mean, this is something I faced. It might not be very common across people, but I have seen this in a lot of community leaders, especially like those with a lot of maybe some form of imposter syndrome, or some form of the perfectionist complex. But I think this is also something that like Aditya said, that you need to have that, you need to make space for other people. You need to make a space where everyone can stand together and work together to build something. So I feel that that was lacking in me when I started building communities. But then eventually I learned about these things as a leader. Like this is a very key quality for any kind of leader, be it a community leader or any kind of leader. So I just felt that this was very much lacking in me. And then as and when things progressed, even with Michi Spotlight in the beginning, like at least till now, I have been doing everything on my own. All the posts that you see on Instagram, everything like I have made. But like recently I started giving out tasks to people, delegating volunteers, and or even like we have our volunteer drive right now. Like we have onboarded a lot of volunteers to help us out with the community, so that there is no point at which if I have burnt out, or if I can't be a part of the community, as Salil also pointed out before, that if I am not active at a point, the community conversations are still going on. things are still happening, events are still being organized by people. Even if I am not there to oversee everything, things are still happening because people are intrinsically passionate about making sure that it's running, making sure that everybody is getting the benefits that the community's vision sort of wants. So yeah, I mean, like, I think these were some points that I wanted to add in this. Like, these are some of the things that definitely would lead to like a stop point, if not a failure. And there'll be like lot of inactivity in communities that you're a part of or that you're building. So I think this is something that definitely should be mitigated here. Another thing, just one small point that I want to add here, is that people who participate in, let's say, like these student ambassador programs like DSC, Microsoft Student Ambassadors, and like GitHub Campus Experts and all of these things, I feel that a lot of them are driven by the wrong motivations. And maybe it's because of certain incentives, maybe it's because of the company name being attached to their resume or something, but like I've seen this a lot. And uh, and the only thing is that, I mean, obviously it depends on leader to leader. Obviously nobody can really I mean, distill passion into you about building community. So I think if you're not passionate enough to uplift other people, or to help out other people or beginners and even people who are in need, essentially pointing them to the right people, pointing them to the right resources, I think that is again like a sort of a quality a community leader should have. If they don't have that, if their entire motivation to run a community or to build a community is motivated or driven by, let's say, some like, obviously most of us do think about incentives, but it's if it's only driven by incentives and nothing else at all, then that community initiative is bound to fail, in my opinion, at some point or the other. Because communities are not businesses. They are, they are way different. Both of these things. Even though organizations like GitHub and these big companies, even they have communities around them. Even like organizations that are not tech related, even they have like Fitbit or products like that. Even they have communities around them, and these communities, they don't function as a company. They function as a community, as a place where everyone has a voice, and everybody is passionate about contributing. Everybody is passionate about that cause that is driving the community, that shared struggle. So yeah, I think that is something that I wanted to add here. Thank you for listening, I guess. Yeah.
Just
Thank you so much for sharing this, Vaishnavi. So sorry, Karthik, I'll just
no.
yeah.
Just I'm just adding one.
Because
Yeah, so yes, I want to make a one point over here. Many people started their own community and they are just doing for the, you can say, as Vaishnavi said, like on the, like the, you can say, has tags over it. I'm just saying, if you're starting a community, enjoy the process. If you're not enjoying that stuff, don't do that. Like many people started up because just want to get a tag of founder. Enjoy the process. Like, I loving interacting with people, I love to help them. So it's not like that I am doing so you have to do the same thing. It can be you have a like maybe a next ambition over that on next kind of thing. So don't do the like, because I saw many people just want to get a tag of founder, like I am a founder of this startup, I'm the founder of this community, so that makes you more eligible. It's not like that. Just enjoy the process. If you're loving to connect with people, if you're loving to interact with or giving a session on that, go for that. Community is for you. Or like, when we are talking about, like, if you have a like a eligibility on that, and like, yeah, I have to be eligible on this standard. No, I am the one who didn't know anything, but I started it and it's going good. But I'm just here point out, just enjoy the process. It's not like that you have to do only community, then only you can get successful. It's not like that. It's just like the path you have to take, man. Simple as it is. Yeah.
yeah, whatever Vaishnavi and Karthikeya just said, I believe these are the two most important takeaways from this session, And thanks, Vaishnavi, for bringing that point, for pointing that out, because I'm an all-rounder myself, and I was doing exactly the same, trying to do it all by myself, and I may have hurt the community by doing this.
I just wanted to add just couple of points related to like community. I feel that there's a sense of responsibility which is always involved when you are in a community. You are leading or either you're a part of it. And there's so many times when people just join the community for being part of them, but they don't understand what is the main aim of that community. Means they're not able to connect with the target or say the basic idea about why this particular community has been formed. And there's also, because there's a communication gap between the people who are the members and the one who are leading, I feel there's a slight reason because of this, people are not able to connect with each other. Communication is a very important key when it comes to community, or you, even if you're leading a hackathon or anything. So I feel that this particular thing should also be considered as as an important factor to how you are driving your community and how people take whether it is just give and take thing or whether it is something which you feel connected to, and you help out the people to to go from a beginner phase to an expert phase. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for adding those points, Vash. I think that sums up pretty well. I'm opening the space for anyone in the audience to come up on the stage, ask a few questions to the speakers that are there. I'll give you 2 minutes, max 2 minutes, because it's getting late and everyone needs to chill out. It's a Saturday. So definitely, if you want to join in, please ask a few questions. Hey, hi, Jasraj. Shloka, do go ahead. And okay, before that, a lot of people have been DMing Aviel's official thing about knowing my profile. So I can't really ping it. There was a last minute issue. So in the space, you'll see a guy named Zeus with a lightning sign. That's me. If you want to follow me and everything, that is the person who's speaking from the official account right now. Yeah, so there was a last minute mess up that happened. So I'm using the official account right now. Definitely, Shroga, yeah, do go ahead.
Hi everyone. So I have a question. I think a good something that we all got very lucky with was COVID happened and a lot of things went online. But I'm sure that soon, because of the news and everything, things may go offline soon. And I just want to ask, what is your advice to people who are trying to build a community offline? I think that's the only question I have.
I think I
Offline
could probably
communities.
speak a little more on that. I actually started off with communities back at a time when things were offline, fortunately. And I think, there's a lot we're gonna have to relearn because with with the transition to online, our circumstances substantially changed, right? No longer were locations, um, logistics of those specific areas, issues with administration of those areas, like colleges, an issue we had to think about. And there's a lot we're going to have to relearn on that front, whether it's in our colleges, whether it's in our workplaces, whether it's independent communities. I think the first thing we're going to have to remember is that a thing about in-person communities is that you will be limited to location. So I think we're going to have to slightly change what expectations we have from our own growth plans and ideas. Secondly, please make sure that you don't beat yourself up if you're not getting 500 members like you might in an initiative right now, just getting 50 instead. Please do not do that. I know enough people who do that, and it's not worth it. 50 is just as good. And yeah, that being said, you're going to have to ensure that whatever impact you try to achieve, your quality is something you sustain, whether it's for 10, whether it's for 1,000, your quality should remain the same, which is going to be difficult to sustain in an in-person scenario because a lot of us haven't started in a time when things were in person, right? So many of us got into communities for the first time, got into hackathons for the first time, spoke at a public stage for the first time when things went online. And the thing about that is that when we're speaking online, at the end of the day, in our room, it's just us and our phone or laptop or computer. And that's not going to be the same in an in-person scenario. So please take it a little easy on yourself on that front. It's not going to be easy, and that's the first thing you all will have to accept. You're not going to see the same growth rates, you're not going to see the same numbers, but um, do not let that impact your quality, and it's going to work out. It, like, one thing we think a lot about our communities is how big they are, but just as that is a metric that's of course necessary to think about, it's important to understand that the quality we make is far more important. It's not worth having a 500-person event if no one's really taking something back from it. But if you have a 20-person event and 10 take something back from it, that's probably a more successful activity, in my opinion. That I will say is my opinion, because I feel that for me, it's always something that's worked out. Starting small is all right. The numbers are gonna grow, but they only do so when you can consistently create an impact. And for that, you might have to start small, but that's all right. It's okay to restart from scratch. Just make sure that whatever quality you want to create, that you're able to do that, and you're gonna be all right.
Definitely, your great points. So yeah, Kartike, you had something to pitch in on that.
Yep. Just wanted
Yep.
to share, like, even though I started my community virtually, I met my teammates, founders, and other community members who are staying in my city, or like college city specifically. Communication is really important, as Vanshika has already stated. Have a meet in a week or in a month once. Just have a meet, regular chatting. No, like a no, not on a technical basis. Yeah, like what hackathon you're. No. Just a random talking, what you're doing, I'm doing, where are you going, just like a random, so that the flow of community at the end of the day is the communication only. Because why to join, like, yeah, in virtual, that what we feel is like that, yeah, we are joining community because we want to get more opportunities. So there is an aspect of it. Another aspect is also cool down. Many people who are doing like I'm just taking an example, Monday to Friday they are doing internship jobs, and Saturday to Sunday it's kind of it can be possible many people just going for Saturday and just for hackathons, and Sunday for very chilling kind of thing. And if chilling kind of thing for many people is like hangouting with someone, or like a random people just talking on a random topic, and it's a great conversation is going on. So if your community can provide this in person, that's a totally awesome. That what I feel, even though I'm not a right person to, because my community is totally virtually, and now I started meeting people in person. So I just want to say, just have a hangout in a month or in a week, as according to you, according to your team, or according to your community. And so that it's like that, if you are leading your community, or like if you're founder of your own community, or if you're part of any community, your your impression, even if it's 10 people in your community, the front people, or you can say the front person who was saying like this is the community, you have to, like, apart from different communities that are around in your space, everyone has to say this is your community, you have to join, you have to make that impact. That what Aditya is saying, consistency is important. And what content that you are providing, even I'm just taking it virtually, and also if you're content providing 1 hour session, and that same content is delivered by 10 minutes in a very proper manner, that's a part. Consistency and quality is important, and how you maintain it, it's totally depends on you and how you're leading your community. So just want to add on there. Yeah.
Definitely. Great points. Vaishnavi, you wanted to add something on that, and Salil.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a few things. Like, I think when it comes to organizing events in person, also, at least for the next, I think, I mean, it might take at least a year to for things to go completely back to normal. I mean, that is to say everything is positive and like things go the way we want them to go. But like statistically, like for now, we can just say that it might take some time to for things to go completely back to normal. And like Aditya also pointed out, in-person events, there'll be a lot of restrictions as compared to like online events. There's going to be technological like resource scarcities, and there'll be a lot of difficulties. Essentially, there might be like a difficulty finding the right kind of speakers for your events, especially like if you are in a remote area, and like you live in a remote area and your community is essentially situated there. So yeah, I think at least for the next 6 months or maybe a year, events might want to like turn into something like into a hybrid version, just like how people are sort of working in the real world in a hybrid environment, like going to office and then working from home some days. So yeah, something like that for communities as well. Maybe having like online events in person, and sort of having like a hybrid mix of events happening in communities. I think that would be there. But yeah, like I think for in-person events, there's going to be a lot of FOMO for all those who couldn't join on that particular location because of travel restrictions, at least for the next I think foreseeable future, I guess. So yeah, I think at least for me as well, like when we were back in college and we had a lot of resource requirements that we did not have. We had to use like our college computers, which had like, I mean, we tried to do a session on Android, and Android Studio like did not run on those computers and could not run probably. But yeah, like I think there's going to be that restriction as well. Obviously, due to the pandemic, everybody, at least in the tech ecosystem, has purchased like some equipment to like learn coding and other stuff as well. But I just feel that that might be an issue, especially for beginners and people who might join us as beginners in that stage. So I think I guess these might be some drawbacks, but definitely like having in-person events is definitely like a really good experience. You get to meet people in person, and that is way I don't know. Way human than having just sitting in your room and like doing a live stream or something like that. But yeah, I guess I'm personally looking forward to it. But yeah, I think we do need to reconsider a lot of our priorities if things do go in that direction. So yeah, I guess that's all I want to add there. Yeah.
Great points. I mean, I connect the most with the last part about being human. I guess those in-person events are on a very different level. There's a lot of excitement involved, and you get to travel and you get to meet a lot of people, right? I mean, there are perks of doing virtual events too. You can host it for people all around the world, but then in-person events, they're just on another level, right? Yeah, Salil, you wanted to add something on that?
Yes, Utkarsh. So I
Yeah.
guess I'm the only one who started the community work way before COVID. In fact, I was responsible for the biggest tech challenge in Goa with over 10,000 participants. But apart from that, I never got more than 40 students, for the stuff that I organized. So no matter how many people attend your events, do it anyways. Because 2, 3 years down the lane, you will get texts from a lot of students saying that your sessions help them. And Shloka, that impact is more important than anything else. And ask yourself, don't you enjoy the in-person hackathon? You do, right? So eventually things will get back normal, and I believe, people will start attending all these in-person events. In fact, we are having one session on blockchain in person in Goa in a few days, and people are willing to come. So yeah, you should go ahead with it.
Definitely. Like this question was this question was very apt and actually pretty well answered. I think we can do another space for it. I don't know. You folks have to tell me. Shloka, does that answer your question? I'll be removing you from the speaker then because we have a lot of people lined up and Twitter is pretty buggy.
Yeah. And thank you for doing whatever you want. And Salil, thank you again. It's the 23rd of October, exactly the same day where you when you held the Hacktoberfest Goa session, and I
Oh,
hope you impact more people.
yeah.
So thank you for everything.
Whoa. Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay, we have Ayan. Ayan, do you want to say something?
Yeah,
Do you
hi.
want?
So I'm organizer of India Linux User Group Delhi and Hardware Hackers Club, and we started way back in 2015. So we have, doing in-person meetups every month with 30 to 35 people showing up, and sometimes more. So for someone who already have an online community, you have a really good starting ground. So if you want to move to a physical sort of meetup group, one advice that I could give is collaborate with some other communities who already have a physical meetup group. And for the first few meetups, like 1 or 2 meetups, just collaborate with them and get 1 or 2 speaker from your community and maybe else from their community. So that's a good way to get traction. And since the people who already are into physical meetups, they have this sorted how to get the venues. They are having collaborations with the co-working spaces and maybe different universities. So yeah, that's one advice. If you want to just transition from online meetups to a physical meetup, just collaborate with other meetup groups who are already doing physical meetups, and that's a good way to accelerate.
Thanks. Thanks, Ayan. Yeah, pretty great points.
It's
Yeah,
actually a
I
good
guess.
way to run.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, definitely.
I am probably, I guess, a little more on a personal note, considering you're with ILUG Delhi. You've probably collaborated with Alias and all by any chance?
Oh yeah, there definitely the
Oh, nice.
Amity,
Yeah,
Alias, PyDelhi, and PyData, and few
yeah.
others, mostly from Delhi.
I was just checking. I mean, I haven't been affiliated with Alias, but I know Vipul and all. Not personally. It's very funny because I got to interact with them after they graduated. But yeah, they're my seniors, so that's nice.
Cool. Small world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Danish, right? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Danish, you wanted to say anything?
Yeah. So
Cool.
I'm a full stack developer and I'm building a local community in Surat, Gujarat. The strategy I'm using right now is give free React.js sessions and group them in WhatsApp, Telegram, and Discord. Then I'm building a community because very less people knows that what we do in the developer job. I want to change the mentality in a good way that so that developer can become a founder of a company and something like that. That's how I'm thinking that everyone can grow. So what's your thought on my approach? About my free React.js sessions and their Node.js sessions I'm gonna do locally. So is there any good way to build a local community?
Just to ensure when you're starting off with the community, at least in person, it's very necessary to have your inner circle or a key group. Um, because what happens is that when we start off, we at this point it seems like it's going to be very easy to get audiences. To truth be told, it's not always like that in in-person communities. And um, what your key group does is it's a great place for you to get validation on your content, get feedback, to be able to practice. Because what happens is that this group is someone who believes in your vision. Typically, that's how you form this. Like for HackOn, for example, our key group was our team that we formed initially, who resonated with what we wanted to do. Because chances are that group is going to remain there with you as you grow. And if you're able to create the impact on them that you intend to, they will advocate for you without you having to ask them to. So that's something that I would recommend for anyone who's transitioning into organizing in person. It's something that does help a lot.
Okay, so you are saying that I should host an hackathon for that, something like that, right?
Not necessarily. It doesn't matter whether it's a hackathon, whether it's a meetup, whether it's a conference. When you're starting off building a community from scratch, um, start off with your own small group of people who believe in what you're trying to do. Whatever
Okay,
initiative it is, you will need your core group. And chances are, as it scales, this is going to be the same group you probably want to build the rest of your team from as well, because these initial people that you look for, you don't have to look at it as whether they're friends or what. Your priority should be to understand whether these are people who resonate with your idea and your vision. And that's how you begin. It can be 5-10 people. That's more than enough, but it can get you the start you need.
Okay, got that, Aditya. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Dinesh, for the question. Thanks, Aditya, for answering. Perfect. We have another minute. If anybody wants to hop in, ask any questions. It's getting pretty late. We'll be ending the things pretty soon. And by the time you are requesting to ask anything, I'll just talk about for the new joinees. I'll just walk you through about what we're doing at Avial again. So yeah. And we'll also, by the end of it, we'll also be running a poll to see if this is actually working out, even for the speakers. Is it worth the time? Is it worth the audience's time? So yeah, for the ones who are not aware, at Avial, we are basically scaling open source projects and helping them get monetized through various community initiatives. Now, community initiatives, they are vast. They are pretty vast. Now, and also make sure you have signed up on our platform. Link is in the bio. Just click on it. And we host a lot of tech events on our platform, and we have ongoing events every week. We have live coding sessions. We have a lot of different weekly events that are running on the platform currently. We have a lot of tech events, and most of our events, except for the spaces, they are all very tech centric. And we have currently partnered with 5 amazing open source projects in total. And feel free to check them out on our platform. And I am pretty sure a lot of you have already been in touch or maybe heard of all those products. And yeah, so one is Hopscotch, one is Chatwood. We have mobile security framework, TypeSense, Dogsy. So yeah, these are open source projects which have thousands and thousands of stars on GitHub too. They have an amazing maintainer community and contributor community attached to it. Feel free to check them out. Avial.com/projects. Yeah, so I see there have been no requests for questions as of yet. Cool. So thanks a lot, Aditya, Vaishnavi, Karthikeya, and Salil for accepting the invite and sharing the space. The insights were actually pretty amazing, and thanks for actually scaling this. And yeah, we actually, just to talk about metrics, we actually went to almost 93 at the start of it. And yeah, so it's been great actually for the very first page to cross even 93 active listeners. And now we are down to 44. It happens, right? But then yeah, thanks for joining in, right? This was the first page. This is something that we were trying at Avial. This was kind of like a pilot event. But then yeah, thanks about sharing the insights about open source communities, building, scaling, everything, and even your personal insights. And yeah, definitely looking forward to all of your future work in open source communities. Speakers, any closing comments or feedbacks or anything at all?
This is fun. Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
Cool. Karthikeya, Salil, anything? Any closing comments?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Krish.
Yeah.
And let's be in touch. Bye, everyone.
Cool. Definitely.
Good night.
Yep. Thanks for joining. Make sure you're following our official handle and you're following the speakers. They are doing some pretty amazing work. And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Hopefully, yeah. Bye.